Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're stepping back in time to the 16th century, a time of, big change and upheaval.
A world really on the cusp of the Reformation.
Exactly, and with the printing press.
Oh, the printing press, just starting to change how knowledge is spread.
And in the middle of it all is this scholar, this thinker.
As famous as any king or queen, really.
This was Erasmus of Rotterdam.
And it is interesting, isn't it, that, he wasn't out there, leading armies or ruling nations.
Right.
But his ideas, they really resonated across Europe and beyond.
And you've given us some great material to work with on this.
Yes.
A recent biography by Professor William Barker and a really interesting interview with him as well.
Yeah, let's jump into the life of this guy.
Okay.
This extraordinary figure.
Who was Erasmus, and why does he still matter to us, almost 500 years later?
Well, his story is really a fascinating mix of ambition, brilliance, and I think even a little bit of mischief.
Oh.
You see, Erasmus wasn't born into privilege.
Okay.
He was the illegitimate son of a priest.
Which is something he later tried to sort of, downplay. He even went so far as to rewrite his own biography.
Wow. Talk about starting life with a challenge.
Yeah.
So how did he go from these humble beginnings to become this intellectual giant that we know him as?
Well, despite a difficult childhood
Yeah.
and a real aversion to traditional schooling, he had this just insatiable thirst for knowledge, particularly for the works of classical writers
Okay.
like Horace and Terence.
So their elegance and their wit and insights really captivated him.
Me did.
So this was a true passion for learning that drove him,
Yeah.
not just a desire for recognition or power.
Absolutely. And what's truly remarkable is that he believed scholarship should serve a higher purpose.
Okay.
Not interested in, ivory tower debates.
Right.
He wanted his work to benefit society, to contribute to the public good.
Now that's a pretty revolutionary idea for the 16th century.
Yeah, it was back then. The prevailing attitude was that scholarship was for the elite,
Yeah.
not for the common person.
Exactly. So it challenged the whole notion of what it meant to be a scholar. And this belief in accessible knowledge, I think, really led him to become a central figure in what was called the Republic of Letters.
Okay, Republic of Letters. It sounds intriguing. Paint us a picture.
Okay.
What was that all about?
So imagine a Europe-wide network of intellectuals, all connected through the exchange of letters.
Okay.
They debated philosophy, shared discoveries, even traded witty barbs.
Like a Renaissance version of social media.
Yeah, but with much more eloquent prose.
I love that image. This vibrant exchange of ideas,
Right.
shaping the intellectual landscape of the time.
Yeah.
It really sounds like a turning point in history.
It truly was.
Yeah.
This Republic of Letters fostered a spirit of collaboration and open inquiry.
Okay.
And that really helped to pave the way for the Renaissance and the Reformation.
Right.
And Erasmus was right at the heart of it.
So we have this brilliant scholar advocating for accessible knowledge,
Yeah.
engaged in this lively intellectual community.
Right.
But it's also a time of tremendous change.
It is.
The printing press is revolutionizing the way information is spread.
It is.
So how did Erasmus navigate this new landscape?
Well, he was a master of it.
Really?
Erasmus understood the power of the printing press, I think, perhaps better than any of his contemporaries.
So he used it to his advantage.
He used it strategically
Yeah.
to build his reputation, disseminate his ideas, and engage in debates with other scholars.
So not only was he a brilliant mind, but also a savvy self-promoter.
You could say that.
Yeah.
He understood that to make a real impact, his ideas needed to reach a wide audience.
Oh, okay.
And he wasn't afraid to use the tools of his time to make that happen.
That's remarkable. It sounds like there are quite a few parallels to the way we communicate and share knowledge today.
There are.
Now, Professor Barker points to a specific event in Erasmus's life as a major turning point, his journey to Italy.
Yes. His time in Italy was incredibly formative for him.
Yeah.
He immersed himself in the heart of the Renaissance,
Okay.
connected with renowned scholars, refined his skills, and really coming into his own as a thinker. And this is where he produced some of his most famous works,
Okay.
starting with The Praise of Folly.
The Praise of Folly.
Yeah.
A title that certainly grabs your attention.
It does.
What was it about this work that made such a splash?
Well, it's a brilliant satire,
Okay.
full of wit and irony, where Folly herself takes center stage, praising human weaknesses and poking fun at societal conventions.
It was a clever way to critique the powerful and expose hypocrisy.
It was?
He wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers, it seems.
Not at all.
Good for him.
He had a sharp wit
Yeah.
and a keen eye for the absurdities of human behavior.
Right.
And he wasn't afraid to use them.
Okay.
The praise of folly made him a literary star, but it also garnered him some powerful enemies.
So he was a risk taker.
Yeah.
Willing to challenge authority and spark controversy, even as he climbed the ladder of success.
Exactly. But the praise of folly was just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
He also took on this monumental project,
Oh.
new translation of the New Testament.
Now, translating the Bible in the 16th century?
Yeah,
That's a bold move.
it is.
What made him undertake such a controversial task?
Well, Erasmus believed that the existing Latin translation, which was called the Vulgate, had become corrupted over time.
Okay.
And he wanted to go back to the original Greek text
Good.
and produce a more accurate and accessible translation for the people.
That's fascinating. So he was challenging the very foundation of religious authority,
He was.
the way people understood Scripture. What kind of pushback did he get for this?
Oh, a tremendous amount.
Really?
Yeah, his translation sparked a firestorm of controversy.
I bet.
The church hierarchy was not happy about someone questioning their established interpretations.
Right.
And remember, this was a time when religious dissent could be incredibly dangerous.
That's right. The stakes were incredibly high.
They were.
It really shows the courage of his convictions.
It does. And Erasmus was never one to back down from a challenge.
Mhm.
He even used his scholarship to defend his work,
Okay.
adding footnotes to his translation where he directly addressed his critics, often with biting wit and sarcasm.
I love that image of him battling it out in the footnotes.
Yeah,
You know, it really humanizes him.
it does.
Shows that even this towering intellectual figure
Yeah.
had a playful,
Yeah.
even defiant side.
He did, and it's this combination of intellectual brilliance,
Yeah.
sharp wit, and unwavering conviction that makes Erasmus such a compelling figure even today.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We've just scratched the surface of Erasmus's life and work.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
And what's truly fascinating is how his story intersects with some of the most significant events of his time,
Okay.
including the rise of the Reformation and his complex relationship with Martin Luther.
Well, on that note, I think we'll take a short break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll delve deeper into these pivotal moments and see how Erasmus's ideas continue to resonate throughout his life and beyond.
So we left off with Erasmus, this intellectual powerhouse,
Yeah.
challenging those traditional interpretations of Scripture
Yeah.
and
Yes.
facing down his critics.
Yes, and it really sets the stage for understanding his relationship with Martin Luther,
Right.
another key figure in the Reformation. It's fascinating how their paths intertwined,
It is.
because on the surface, they seem to share many of the same goals.
They did.
Reforming the church, emphasizing personal engagement with the Bible,
Right.
but their approaches were fundamentally different.
Exactly. Initially, they even saw each other as allies,
Okay.
united in their criticism of church corruption and their desire for a more authentic form of Christianity.
Right.
But their views on a key theological issue,
Okay.
free will,
Yeah.
ultimately drove a wedge between them.
I remember Professor Barker discussing this in the interview.
He did.
Can you elaborate on their differing viewpoints?
Certainly Erasmus, while critical of the church, still believed in the power of human agency.
Okay.
Our ability to choose between right and wrong,
Right.
to make decisions that shape our salvation.
Okay.
Luther, on the other hand, embraced a more deterministic view,
Hmm.
emphasizing God's absolute sovereignty and predestination.
So for Erasmus, there was a balance
Right.
between God's grace and human effort,
Yeah,
while Luther placed a much stronger emphasis on God's unyielding control.
precisely. And this fundamental difference eventually led to a public and bitter feud
Oh, wow.
that fractured the humanist movement
Mhm.
and forced scholars to choose sides in a deeply divided religious landscape.
Must have been a tumultuous time,
It was.
with these intellectual giants clashing over such fundamental questions of faith and human agency.
It was, and their debate had far-reaching implications,
Hmm.
influencing the course of the Reformation and shaping the development of different Christian denominations for centuries to come.
It's amazing to think how one theological dispute could have such a profound impact on history.
It is.
But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about Erasmus's scholarly work,
Yes.
but Professor Barker also highlighted his impact on education.
Yes. That's a crucial aspect of his legacy.
Yeah.
Erasmus believed that education should be more than just rote memorization or blind adherence to authority.
Oh, okay.
He advocated for a more humanistic approach, one that emphasized critical thinking, clear communication and engagement with classical literature.
It sounds like he was centuries ahead of his time.
He was.
Even today, we're still striving for these very same goals in our education system.
Absolutely. In fact, Erasmus's friend John Colet
Okay.
used these very principles to revolutionize the curriculum at St. Paul's School in London.
Really?
He emphasized the importance of engaging students' minds,
Okay.
encouraging them to think independently,
Right.
and fostering a love of learning.
So Erasmus's ideas weren't just theoretical.
Yeah.
They were actually put into practice, shaping the way generations of students were taught. That's a powerful legacy.
It is, and it raises a thought-provoking question for us today.
Okay.
If Erasmus's vision for education was so influential,
Right.
what lessons can we learn from his approach?
Yeah.
How can we ensure that future generations inherit a system that prioritizes critical thinking and genuine engagement?
That's a vital question, especially in today's world,
It is.
where we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Right.
It's more important than ever to equip young people with the tools to discern truth,
Yeah.
to think critically,
Yes.
and to form their own informed opinions.
Exactly. And Erasmus's emphasis on clear, accessible writing was another crucial element of his educational vision. He understood that knowledge needs to be communicated effectively to be truly impactful.
It's interesting to consider how his focus on clarity and accessibility might relate to our own digital age.
It does.
With the constant flow of information online, the ability to communicate clearly and concisely is perhaps even more vital today.
You make a great point. And remember, Erasmus wasn't just a scholar writing for other scholars.
Right.
He was a master communicator, someone who understood how to engage a wider audience, to spark their curiosity, and to make complex ideas accessible and relevant.
In many ways, he was a precursor to the public intellectual we see today.
He was.
Someone who uses their knowledge and communication skills to engage in broader societal conversations.
That's a very astute observation. He understood that ideas don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
To make a difference, they need to reach an audience, to spark debate, to inspire action.
And in that sense, he was incredibly adept at using the media of his time, the printing press,
He was.
to achieve his goals.
Right?
Professor Barker even described him as a truly commercial intellectual.
He did.
Someone who knew how to market his ideas. He was clearly ambitious.
Yes, but it's important to remember that his ambition wasn't driven by ego or a thirst for power.
Okay.
He truly believed that his ideas had the power to change the world for the better.
Right.
And he was determined to use every tool at his disposal to make sure they were heard.
So it was an ambition fueled by a genuine desire to make a positive impact.
It was.
That's an important distinction, especially today when we often view ambition with suspicion or cynicism.
Absolutely. Erasmus reminds us that ambition, when paired with a deep commitment to a worthy cause, can be a powerful force for good. And it's this unwavering belief in the power of ideas that truly defines his legacy.
Speaking of legacy, one of the things that struck me about Erasmus was his unwavering commitment to peace and tolerance.
Yeah.
Even in a time of intense religious and political turmoil.
That's right. He was deeply troubled by the violence and division that he saw erupting around him, particularly as the Reformation gained momentum.
Right.
He believed that true wisdom lay not in dogma or blind adherence to authority, but in the ability to think critically, listen empathetically, and engage in respectful dialogue.
It's a message that resonates deeply today as we witness increasing polarization and conflict in our own societies.
It does.
It seems we could all benefit from a dose of Erasmus's wisdom.
I completely agree. He reminds us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable differences, it's always worth striving for understanding, seeking common ground, and engaging in reasoned debate.
He was a voice of moderation and reason in an era marked by extremism and fanaticism.
He was.
And that, I think, is a crucial aspect of his enduring legacy.
Precisely, he reminds us that education, critical thinking, and open dialogue are essential tools for building a more just and harmonious society.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From Erasmus's humble beginnings to his intellectual achievements, his controversial views, and his lasting legacy.
Right.
But there's one final question I think we need to address.
Okay.
Why does Erasmus still matter to us today?
That's a great question.
What can we take that Mansing living in the 21st century?
Right.
Learn from this 16th century scholar.
And I think the answer lies in the timeless relevance of his core values.
Okay.
The power of human reason, the importance of education, the need for dialogue and tolerance,
Right.
and the unwavering belief in the power of ideas to shape a better world. These are values that transcend any particular era or context.
And it's inspiring to think that one person armed with his wit and his pen
Yeah.
could have such a lasting impact on the world.
It is, and it's a reminder that ideas have power.
Right.
Erasmus wasn't a ruler or a general.
Yeah.
But his writings changed the course of history. It makes you wonder, what ideas are we engaging with today that might shape the future?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
It is.
What knowledge are you passionate about, and how are you sharing it with the world?
Erasmus would definitely encourage you to find your voice and use it to contribute to the ongoing conversation of ideas.
If you're intrigued by Erasmus and his world, we definitely recommend diving into that biography and interview you provided.
Yes.
Professor Barker does a wonderful job of bringing this complex figure to life.
He does. You'll discover a man of great wit, sharp intellect, and unwavering conviction. Someone who challenged the world to think differently and to live more meaningfully.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the life and legacy of Erasmus. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those intellectual sparks flying.
You know, it is incredible to think that someone who lived 500 years ago could still speak to us so directly today.
It really is. It speaks to just the enduring power of his ideas, you know? He grappled with questions that are still relevant today.
Yeah?
About the role of individual conscience, the balance of faith and reason, the responsibility of intellectuals in a changing world.
And he wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo,
No, he wasn't.
even when it meant, risking his reputation or safety. He reminds us that true progress often requires courage
It does.
and a willingness to question those in power.
Absolutely. And it's not just about challenging authority for its own sake.
Right.
It's about using our intellect, our voice, our knowledge to create a more just humane and enlightened world.
That's something I think we can all aspire to,
It can.
regardless of our background or profession.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in shaping the future. And I think Erasmus's life and work provide a powerful model for how to do that, with intelligence, integrity, and a deep commitment to the common good.
Well said. And if our listeners are interested in exploring Erasmus's ideas further,
Yes.
we highly recommend checking out the biography and interview you provided.
Yes.
Professor Barker does a wonderful job of bringing this complex figure to life.
He does. You'll discover a man of great wit, sharp intellect, and unwavering conviction. Someone who challenged the world to think differently and to live more meaningfully.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the life and legacy of Erasmus. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those intellectual sparks flying.